Discipline Equals Freedom, Episode 2. Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Why? Why? I'm going to go straight to the book on this one right here. Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. Why? Over and over and over again, I am asked, why? What drives me? This happens to this day. I still get asked this question. And I think people are looking for, hey, maybe he's going to say something that then I can hold on to, right? Like, tell me why you're doing this. So then when I know why you're doing it, then I can do it for that why as well. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I don't think that works. I don't think it works 100% of the time. Maybe it works 70% of the time. But what it comes down to is my why is not going to be the same as your why in many cases. Back to the book. What drives me? When I was younger, I was preparing for war. What a way to grow up. What an awesome way to grow up. And it's weird because I was preparing for a war that at the time didn't exist because it was the 90s. And in the 90s, there was no war going on. There was little skirmishes that would break out around the world. So what I was preparing for was the unknown. What I was preparing for was something that I didn't understand fully. And in my mind and in many of our minds, we prepared for like a dragon that was 1,000 feet tall and breathed fire. And so that's what we were getting ready for. We weren't preparing for a kangaroo. Do dragons kind of look like kangaroos a little bit, right?
Yeah, sure. It depends on what depiction of the dragon, I guess.
But don't dragons, they kind of have, they're back on aren't dragons on 2 feet? Kind of like a kangaroo?
Some of them, yeah. Like a Godzilla scenario. Yeah, that a dragon?
Yeah, kind of.
But then if you look at like
Mothra.
The Last Dragon, that's more of a moth, but you got The Last Dragon, I think it's called, or Dragonheart, sorry, that's a 4-legged dragon right there.
So we could go both ways.
Yeah.
Well, what I was preparing for was a big, giant, the most evil dragon you could imagine. That's what I was preparing for. Back to the book. I knew that somewhere out there, another man was also preparing. That man was my enemy. He was working, training, planning, and preparing to meet me on the battlefield. I didn't know when. I didn't know where. So all that changed. Once the war started, it was like, oh, you're going on deployment in 12 months. And you're going to Afghanistan. You're going to Iraq. You're going to wherever, where you know there's a war going on. So you knew who the enemy was. We didn't even know who the enemy was back then. It was like, well, it could be some terrorist. It could be some insurgent. It could be we didn't know what it was. Partially also because I was young and dumb. So we're training for the unknown. This reminds me talking to Brian Sargent.
Sure.
He said when he was a really good wrestler, and he would train for wrestling, and when he would visualize who he was going against, they never had a face. Because he said he didn't want to be opponent specific because you're not sure, you're going through the brackets and maybe this guy upsets this guy. So you're not going to go against the guy, the number 2 seed. Now you're going against the number 4 seed, but I didn't prepare for him. So he'd prepare visually to wrestle people without faces. And I feel like that's kind of what I was doing. But in doing that, it makes you prepare in a lot of ways. It makes you prepare harder, right? Because if you're smart, you're thinking worst case scenario. Like maybe you're thinking, oh, well, the way the bracket's going to be set up, I'm going to be going against the number 12 seed. That's going to be pretty easy. I know that guy. He doesn't have a real good sprawl. I'm going to take him down easy. Then all of a sudden you're going against some other guy. So that's a problem. So when you prepare for someone with no face, it's non-specific, what that should do is increase your fear levels, which therefore requires you to increase your discipline levels. So you're going to train harder. Back to the book. But I knew that at some point we would meet, and I wanted to be ready. Ready mentally, ready physically, ready emotionally. So I trained, and I prepared, and I did everything I could do to be ready for that day. Waiting. So that's an awesome driving force to have in the back of your head, right? For me, at least it was. For me, at least it was. It goes on. So I trained and I prepared and I did everything I could to be ready for that day. When I became a leader, I took the same approach to prepare my men in the same way, to train brutally and without mercy so we could fight brutally and without mercy. And by the way, that's what I used to say at Trade Ed. And when a team would check in, I'd say, hey, we train brutally and without mercy so we can fight brutally and without mercy. That's what you need to do. That's how you need to prepare. Back to the book. And the day came. We met the enemy on the battlefield. We were ready and we fought and we won. Then one day, it was over. I was no longer a soldier, no longer a leader of men. I was no longer preparing myself or my men for war. So, what drives me now? The answer is simple. The men that did not come home. Mark and Mikey and Ryan, but it's not only them. There are others, hundreds more, thousands more, countless more, who fought and died to give me the gift of freedom. And for them, I will make every day, every minute, every second, I will make it all count. I will live to honor their sacrifice, a life worthy of the price they paid for me, for us. I will not let them down. So that's a broad, overarching, driving force in life. That's a broad, in other words, that's so deeply embedded. That's such a huge driver. That's almost like the psychological driver. You know, someone that when they were growing up, they got picked on, and for the rest of their life, they're trying to succeed and do well because to show everyone else that they got picked on or they got abandoned, like whatever. Like that's the kind of deep sort of almost psychological driving force. I feel that. I feel that I have that. Viktor Frankl, he said, and this is who was captured by the Nazis, you know, in the concentration camp, entire family killed. The only survivor was him. And he has a quote that is, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." So you have to know why you're doing what you're doing. You have to know why you're doing what you're doing. And to me, this is your own personal strategic thinking, right? We talk about on a mission, you've got to understand the long-term strategy that you're trying to achieve. You've got to understand what the long-term goal is. You and I talk about this a lot. We've got to think strategic. We got to think long-term. Short-term, have a donut, tastes good right now, instant gratification. Long-term strategy, you're fat, out of shape, unhealthy. So you got to think long-term. Well, that's what this is. That's what we have to do. We have to have something to reach back to. We have to have something to reach back to. And yeah, the steps can be hard. So sometimes when we need a little push for what we're doing right now, we've got to think about that long-term goal. We got to think about that long-term destination. We got to think about what it is we're trying to achieve. That's what we have to do. Now, here's the thing. Those big, giant, long-term sort of psychological, strategic goals, which again, if you have them, great. You also have to make sure that those things are on point, right? There's people that have bad long-term strategic goals, right? The kids that rebels against their parents were mean to them, so they're going to pay them back by being a failure, by being a druggie, by get sent to jail. They want to embarrass their parents. It's one of their goals. This happens. I've seen it happen. Sometimes it can be a positive thing. Oh, my parents were terrible to me. I'm going to prove to them that I'm better. So I'm going to go work my ass off. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to make money. I'm going to be healthy, all those things. Sometimes that happens. Could go either way. I don't know what the percentage is. What do you think the percentage is?
I don't know.
Tough to call?
Well, to be successful, very small. It's usually more of a damaging, toxic thing. But, I think if you hit that Goldilocks zone, you got just enough of the good stuff and just enough of or a little bit more of just enough of the bad stuff, boom. That perfect imbalance. Optimal. Yeah. But
well,
I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. You need a little bit of both optimally. You got to have struggle, but a little too much struggle, things go off the rails.
Yeah.
That's when you have some real problems. But with no struggle whatsoever, now you have a spoiled kid.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and it'll come as no surprise when you think about it. A lot of these quote unquote high achievers have some kind of a weird thing about them, like something's imbalanced, and it'll show itself in some other way. Like maybe they have trouble with relationships or, a lot of the time, I'm not talking about anyone specific, but to find that out about somebody when they're a high achiever comes as no surprise a lot of the time. Where they'll have something else lacking.
Okay. Yeah.
There's some imbalance that shows itself in some other part of their life, so to speak. That can be a thing as well. So that seems like it kind of lends credence to the idea of hey, there was something that was unfulfilled, that's driving them, and it just shows itself in smaller ways, in bad ways, but the main way it shows itself is in that driver for success.
Yeah.
That's
what we hope for.
That's what we hope for.
We hope it's not just downward spiral, which can certainly happen. So you got to check your kind of underlying psychological strategic goals. But the thing is, those things can also be so deep that they're just they're almost, you don't notice them, right? There's some people like a normal person, maybe didn't have some big issue, but they got a little bit of an issue, and that's kind of what drives them, but it's not enough to really push them to excellence. It's also not enough to push them to chaos. So they just end up sort of going along with the flow. And then what you end up with is just okay, what kind, let's think about this in more just normal kind of, not day to day, but sort of normal sort of strategic goals that we might have as a human being. Get stronger, gain weight, lose weight, make more money, buy a car, buy a house, get good at guitar, get good at jiu-jitsu, whatever. You pick a thing. Whatever those goals are. When you think about those goals, you have to understand why they're important to you. You have to. If you don't attach a meaningful why, you will not have the discipline that you need. You will not have the discipline that you need. If you don't have a powerful why, your discipline will not be powerful. If you have a weak why, your discipline will be weak. If you have a medium why, your discipline will be medium. If you have a freaking hardcore why, your discipline will be hardcore. Like when you in a movie when someone does something terrible, and that other person has the revenge why. What a good strong why. Or the boxer that the other boxer killed his brother or something. Now he's got to go fight him. How hard does that dude train? Hard as possible. Hardest a human can train.
Talk about kickboxer.
Kickbox, is that what it is?
Yeah. Van Damme. He kills his brother.
There you go. Right? How hard does Van Damme train then?
Hardcore.
So the more hardcore your why is, the more hardcore your discipline is. So you got to figure that out. And listen, here's the thing. Sometimes if you think about the why, you'll realize that it's a lot more hardcore than you thought. So, I want to work out every day. Why? Well, I kind of want to get in shape. That's how. What are we getting there? What's the strength of that? 1 to 10.
Well, I just want to get in shape. Yeah, that's a 1. That's a 2, maybe.
Maybe a 3 at best.
Yeah.
A 1 to 10, maybe a 3 at best.
Yeah.
But if you start thinking about, I want to work out every day because I have kids and they're young and I want to be healthy enough to do things with them and healthy enough to walk my daughter down the aisle. I want to be, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
All of a sudden, that's escalating.
Especially if you get an indicator that you could lose it all, like health-wise. Yeah. So, like, you get these guys have my cousin's husband. He had a heart attack. Oof. Young guy, like under 50. Before he was 50, had a heart attack.
How'd that Y? What happened to that Y?
Bro, that Y went sky high. Point. So, and it was the kind he didn't like. It wasn't the kind of massive heart attack. The kind you can have like a little mild heart attack. So I guess it was like a medium heart attack. Yeah. Oh yeah. Freaking right then and there, and boom, his whole life changed. Oh yeah,
life changer. That Y went from I don't really know, kind of like to enjoy myself.
Yeah, because he wasn't like this big, like super sloppy. He was just a little heavy. Like most people, I guess, in a way. Or so yeah, just a little heavy. Yeah. So that Y was at about a 3, I would say.
So what happened to his discipline?
Still going, we'll say that.
So
that
we got
10
strong.
Years ago. Yep.
So you need to look at your Y and you need to figure out how to reinforce your why. You need to reinforce your why. Sometimes, a lot of times, oftentimes, that means taking a more strategic look at your why. A more long-term look. Not like just like, well, summer's coming and I'm going to that pool party in July 4th pool party. I want to be looking good.
That's actually a pretty good short to medium term.
It's a good short to medium term. It's a good short to medium term. But if you had a heart attack and you realized you might not live anymore, so start thinking about that. So take that short to medium term.
Right.
Take the 4th of July pool party at the Charles residence. We're going to go there. We're going to be looking good, right?
Hell yeah.
Take that, but then add to that, strengthen that, reinforce that with an even more powerful why, which is your health is what your family depends on. Strengthen that why. You want to save money. Well, why do you want to save money? Well, because I'd really like to look flashy when I go down to the club in a new car or whatever. Yeah. Right? That's sure. Like you said, that could be a medium. Yeah. Coming from Mr. Cadillac over here.
Right. When you're a little kid and you want to save some money for the freaking Optimus Prime action figure, bro, it works.
Yeah. Well, those things were kind of a big deal back in the day because they could transform literally.
Oh yeah, I agree. And that translates over to a bunch of stuff you want to save for that. And those new Gucci sunglasses, like how you say you want to flex in this event or in general or whatever. Like it works straight up.
It does, but you can reinforce that why by saying, "Hey, I'm not saving for a pair of Gucci sunglasses or a flashy car. I'm saving for a house." So that I can have stability and freedom and security for me and my family. All of a sudden, that why is reinforced. Then maybe that Gucci bag doesn't look so good. Right. Then maybe that flashy car, maybe we don't need to get the Cadillac. Maybe we can get the Yukon. You know what I'm saying? The GMC version. What have you?
Sure.
Because you realize, hey, I'm going to strengthen my discipline because my why has been reinforced and is more powerful. Now, that being said, sometimes the dream can be too far away. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. The dream can be too far away. Like, dude, I won't be able to get a house because when you start saving for a house, when you're 20 years old, you might have 6 years of saving before you can get a house. 6 years. And 6 years when you're like, well, it is the week. So if it's today and I'm 20 years old and I'm like, in 6 years, I've done my calculations. I make $32,000 a year. I'm going to save whatever, 10%. It's going to take me this much time. It's going to take me 6 years to save up my down payment for my $280,000 house. So in 6 years, I'm going to be able to buy my house that I want. And then tonight, someone's like, yo, you want to go to the club? Let's throw some money down. Hell yeah. And out come the hundos. Right?
Yep.
So you lose track of that long-term goal. Mm-hmm. That's why it's good, as you said, to have some intermediate goals, some more short-term goals about how much money I'm trying to save this month. Mm-hmm. And then what you do is you say, listen, as long as I save whatever that number is, if I'm gonna save $1,000 this month, and as long as I do that, I'm gonna save $900, $800, $700. As long as I do that, I'm gonna have $180. I'm gonna blow on a Friday night. That's going to be my reward for saving. So what does that mean? It means I'm not going to buy the Starbucks coffee that costs $8 every day for this month. It means I'm not going to waste my money on this, that. It means I'm going to cancel my subscription to whatever freaking streaming service is coming in at $18 a month. You're going to make moves so that you can get a short-term reward, but you're still going to have the discipline maintained for your long-term reward. You're going to focus on the thing right in front of you and do it so that you can eventually accomplish your long-term goal. And that is the discipline. And if you want some more discipline, go to thedefreset.com. If you need fuel, go to jockofuel.com. Gear, go to originusa.com or jockostore.com. And leadership, go to echelonfront.com. That's what we're doing. Stay disciplined. And until next time, this is Echo and Jocko